The next person we're going to be speaking with, you'll find out maybe a different part of the globe, but in the same arena. Is it Iara? How do I pronounce your name?
Iara.
Iara Lee.
Iara is a Brazilian name. It means mother of water. I was born and raised in Brazil, but my parents are Korean. And I am a world activist. I'm doing a lot of work in different parts of the African continent, Middle East, Latin America. And it's a great honor to be here, Everett and Conrad and Edric.
Lee. And you said you're you're an activist?
Yes.
And you're Brazilian?
Yes. So
and I could have guessed that based on, and what do you call your headpiece?
Oh, this?
Yes. It looks Brazilian.
Yeah, actually it's more African.
Oh, it's African.
I have an African heart.
Oh, okay, so there you go.
With Korean eyes, Brazilian soul.
You have Korean eyes?
Yes.
And African hat?
Yes.
And what else?
Well, and here I am in your precious island, trying to bring some of our films. Cultures of Resistance is our organization. We basically promote a resistance movement through arts and culture, through music, dance, photography, poetry, whatever it takes to promote positive change through creativity. So
and why do you think you got involved in that?
I come from the arts and culture world, but as I observe the world and all the problems we have, I realize we have to use arts and culture to go beyond arts and culture. So I think it's the greatest tool we have, because we are not going to use weapons or, terrorism like governments do with us. We're going to use creativity to combat all the negative forces, the tsunami of problems that we have to deal with on a daily basis. And I'm trying to promote hope, because we cannot just pray or cry or get desperate. We have to move forward and get action on the ground and get the youth to come on board to salvage the world.
You see, that is fascinating, because you made a comparison, and people have to realize and appreciate there are a lot of ways you can make your case, right?
Yes, but mainly action, because sometimes people are informed, sometimes people know what's going on, but that's not enough. Or sometimes people, sometimes I show my movies and they're like, oh, I'm so inspired. I'm like, okay, but we got to transform this inspiration into action, because we have a lot of work ahead of us. And that's why the film I'm bringing to the island is called From Trash to Treasure, How to Turn Negatives into Positives, which is a philosophy that I embrace and I want more people to embrace, because hope is the only answer.
So From Trash to Treasure, it's a great title and catchy as well. Can you give us a synopsis of it?
I went to this tiny country called Lesotho in southern Africa, and I was curious because, I've been traveling the world. I've been to 178 countries, and when I saw Lesotho, I was like, okay, I haven't been here. Let's go and see what's going on there. And it's a country with so many problems: corruption and HIV and child marriage and, problems with the LGBTI that are persecuted, and nepotism, and whatever you can think of, unemployment, everything you can think of, they got there. But they are not going to sit around. They're going to use recycling. They're going to use environmental justice. They're going to use hip-hop music. They're going to use cycling to get the kids out of trouble. Instead of, doing drugs, they're cycling, and, they're doing sports. People are making films to educate people about child marriage, that is not correct to marry children underage. And so people are just engaged, in using arts and culture to change their society. And I thought it was so wow, amazing. And a lot of times people bring negative stories from the African continent, and I'm determined to bring the positive stories because they have so much to teach us, you know. So this is something that a lot of times goes unperceived by mainstream media. And as I'm an independent filmmaker, I try to bring those like out of the radar stories to motivate people to keep fighting for positive change.
So would you say what you present to people is important because it can have them shaped one way or the other?
Yeah, because, you know, it's so overwhelming when you look at the news and the state of the world and the whole situation, all these criminal wars and state terrorists, you know. So all these things are so overwhelming. Sometimes people just freeze, and we cannot afford to freeze. We have to actually just like get motivated. And the more problems we see, the more we have to be, you know, on the ground doing things to change. And especially young people, because they will inherit this world, you know. So at this point, I'm not even thinking of change like immediate. I'm thinking about planting seeds of love and hope and solidarity, so people maybe few generations down the road can see the trees grow, you know. But unfortunately, the speed of destruction is so fast that we cannot afford to be too slow with our salvaging the world, you know. So people really have to get on the program and get going.
So you've been to West Africa, you've been to a lot of different areas, but this is just one tiny place. How did you get here? How did you learn about here and get here?
Well, as I mentioned, I'm very interested in off the beaten path places that are not cliche, you know, like I was telling this morning I did another interview that most filmmakers, they just want to show in London, Paris, New York, Tokyo, and to me it's very important to acknowledge there's more than that, you know. So each of my small films, they screen in at least 100 countries, and all very grassroots style. It's just me and my assistants knocking at the door. Tuck, 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 we have this movie, can we show it? So it's not through like distributor or, you know, sales agent. It's all grassroots and people connecting with people. And, you know, I was doing an agroecology course in Puerto Rico, learning about ecological agriculture, and I said, okay, since I'm here, let's do a tour of the Caribbean. So we just screened in Santo Domingo in Dominican Republic, we had a screening in Guadeloupe, we had a screening in San Lucia, we had a screening in Puerto Rico, we had a screening in many different places here. And you know, a lot of times people say, oh, it's just cruise ships. I'm like, no, there is community, there are people living here that need to cherish and protect their land. It's not just about cruise ships and tourists, you know. And in fact, we have to get the people who live here to educate these tourists, so you can have these beautiful, amazing Nevis and St. Kitts, you know, preserved for the future generations.
And I gather also, as you do some documentaries, did you do one in Chernobyl?
Yeah, I did one in Chernobyl as well. We are screening that in other places. That was before Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine, and that was about energy, because people think about nuclear energy as clean because it's not carbon, but at the end it's like, what do you do with the nuclear waste, you know? But the film has a very adventure facade, because as bizarre as it is, Chernobyl became the #1 destination in Ukraine for tourists. People here come for the beach. People go to Chernobyl for post-apocalypse tourists because people got bored of the beach. So humans are strange, and so I made a film about this phenomenon. But then obviously things have changed drastically with the invasion of Ukraine, this beautiful country that is now destroyed, and we are trying to send a lot of humanitarian aid and support. So a lot of my films, they start as kind of like avant-garde and very like, you know, anticipating some of these things, but then they become historical when the time goes by. So it's a very interesting phenomenon, because Chernobyl now is very much up for grabs again with the Russian occupation and invasion and war and all these things. But here I thought maybe it would be more suitable to bring From Trash to Treasure, which is a film I shot in Southern Africa. And then I also have, after the intermission, we'll also have another film called One Talks, Dance of Resilience in Melanesia, because I think you will find a lot of similarities because in the Pacific we have all these island countries. And this year, for the first time, it's becoming official that we are going to have the first country disappear. Tuvalu is a country that will be completely submerged, so people are evacuating and they are just accepting that this is going to disappear as a country. So I think you, as an island country too, or twin island country, will also feel connected to this story of climate injustice, because a lot of these countries, they are very pristine, ecological. They don't even have factories, but they are the first to get the sea rise and all the effects of climate change, that is provoked mainly by industrialized countries that overconsume and abuse, and create all these catastrophes that are paid by people who are completely innocent all the way down in the Pacific Islands.
For the time, and I know you have not been here very long, but for the time that you've been on our islands, and of late we have been used for doing some filming by some of the filming companies and stuff like that. What is your opinion? What do you gather of the islands?
I'm so amazed because, it's still pristine and it's still so real. A lot of the Caribbean countries have been destroyed by tourism, massive tourism or cruise ships. But here you still have lots of spots that are really wow, it's almost so untouched by these resorts and all this crazy all in one place. So I'm so begging you, please keep protecting your island.
You think maybe one of these days you might do a documentary of here as well?
Well, I'm connecting to the local documentary people to see what they are up to, and I actually have heard already some very interesting stories. One of the filmmaker, Cleon, he's from St. Kitts, he's interested in bringing the stories of the forgotten heroes of St. Kitts and Nevis, because you have all these resistance heroes that don't get acknowledged in history books, because history books are written by the winners, by colonial powers. So unfortunately, I have to say a lot of things we learn in the history books are lies because they are written by colonial powers. So history has to be rewritten, not only here but all over. And one of the filmmakers here wants to bring the story of resistance heroes from your islands, and I think it's a beautiful thing,
Yes, well, I have a way that I normally say, some people write history the way they would like it to be read.
Exactly, and the power controls the media and history and everything. So in the U.S. there is even a book that is called The History from People's Perspective, and it's a history, from oppressed people, from the point of view of oppressed people, and not from the oppressor's point of view. Mm-hmm. It's quite different history book.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to allow Mr. Edric W. Stanley or Mr. Leiber to ask you a little question as we are leaving now, but I wanted to again tell us what's happening with the film. When is the showing?
It's going to be Sunday at NEPAC at 4 p.m. and it's open to everybody, free entry, and it will be just wonderful to be able to meet local people and talk about collaborating further, because as I was saying to Deslin, she runs NEPAC, I hope this is just the first of our collaborations, because this theater is amazing. This performing arts center is just amazing what you got here. So since we do films and we work with musicians and activists, and hopefully we'll do more. So come Sunday for the first introduction, and look forward to meeting you all Sunday, February 12, 4 p.m. The films are shorter than or feature-length films, and I guarantee you'll be, excited. It's not the typical boring documentaries, Has a lot of music, it's very active, it's very motivating and very encouraging, so young people come over too.
Okay, we thank you for coming to Nevis, and we appreciate you, and don't forget that documentary. Now, Mr. Edric, you got anything you'd like to ask her?
I would like to ask her, based on the election in Brazil, Bolsonaro and Lula da Silva, which side were you on?
For sure, I'm with the people. I'm with Lula.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Now you got a question you want to ask?
because it's all about supporting the people,
Yeah,
the peasants and the people, the poor, because a lot of these politicians sometimes they just care about capitalism and the ones that are already rich and in power, and so we have to do, I mean, no politician is perfect, no politician is a saint, but we always have to choose the ones that will acknowledge and care about the ones that are
Less evil.
destitute. Yeah, and hopefully Lula will take care of the poor people, because we have a very big problem of a difference, like the whole 1% super rich and 99 destitute. This is one of the issues, and we have a lot of urban violence, and we have a lot of exclusion, so we need to acknowledge indigenous people, and we need to care about the environment. Unfortunately, our previous president just didn't care. It was all about just capitalism, so hopefully we'll go back to a little bit more humanitarian, humanistic, and human government.
Naya, your question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask the lady, are you a part of an organization? I didn't get
Yeah, it's called Cultures of Resistance.
Cultures of the
Yes, with the plural, cultures, because at the end, it's about the women, the children, education, human rights, ecology. It's about intertwining everything. So we try to use creativity through, as a way of empowering and promoting and supporting and collaborating. And has been
and that organization is based where, or is it something global?
The work we do is mainly global south. So we do a lot of work in Somalia, Afghanistan, Kashmir, Palestine, Iraq, and conflict areas mainly. And but it's registered in the U.S.
Okay.
But we mainly do work in the global south, which means African continent, Middle East, and Latin America. So forth.
So what's the average length of one of your films?
My films, they go from short films all the way to full-length films.
Like when we come on Sunday.
Oh, that's this Sunday. Yeah, it's like less than half an hour, the first, and the second also 20 minutes. So the program total is like 1 hour, but then we'll have conversation and working and discussion, because I'm here to learn also what can we do together, to preserve your beautiful island, because it's just so precious. And what's happening here on the level of culture and art and engagement, because I think we just got email from the Taiwanese that they want to promote more recycling, so we'll have them come and participate and try to engage more people to promote the idea of recycling, because garbage is always a very big issue, because they're like, you are in an island, what do you do with the garbage produced, So, and I'm so curious to learn what are the youth or what are the young people doing here to, do something that is positive for your country, and finding ways of collaborating.
Do you sometimes think that you would probably get in trouble with the authorities?
Oh yeah, I get thrown in jail, I get deported, I get visa canceled, because I'm mainly confronting the powerful governments. I confront the U.S. government because they like to promote the idea they're promoting democracy, and and then they go to Iraq and they invade Iraq, and I'm like, no, this is not promoting democracy. You want the oil, it's blood for oil, so I have to be very direct. And because sometimes governments don't appreciate, the Palestinian-Israel conflict, where we have this very long occupation of Palestine by Israel. So this is a very thorny issue that I also support. The Kashmiris are occupied by India and Pakistan. So there are a lot of very difficult issues, especially when it comes to war. Like I just think these wars are criminal. It's all about weapons industry. And we have to stop this carnage, Why do we have all these wars? It's just to sell weapons. We cannot allow this. It's so sad that these people are paying with their lives. So we have to work for peace with justice.
Okay. So we thank you once again. We will see you on Sunday.
Yes.
And if you're ever around this area again, please come back.
Thank you so much.